Hi there, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Gazette's Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Stu Cowan of the Gazette, joined by former Canadiens defenseman and 1986 Stanley Cup champ Rick Green, and my Gazette colleague and What the Puck columnist Brendan Kelly. Rick, I think the Carolina Hurricanes have highlighted how the Canadiens' rebuild is far from over. They've totally dominated the Canadiens in this series. What does GM Kent Hughes have to do this summer to make this Canadiens team better?
I think he understands that easier said than done, obviously, is to find that good size second line center with some skill and some grit. I'd like to see him look at getting a little bit bigger, a little more grit in their lineup, whether it be a winger or a centerman. But I think that the big problem area that they have is trying to find that number two center to work with some of their skilled guys that they do have at their disposal. And again, they'll have to check things out, what's out in the in the league, and see if they can find a way to get one of those guys. And he's got a pretty good understanding of where he needs to go, and now he'll do the research and see what he needs to do to make his team better.
Yeah, Brent, I mean, Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton are smart guys. I think they've known, all season what they need to do and what they need to add. I don't think they expected to be in the Eastern Conference Final this season. I don't think anybody really did. But, I mean, the number two center is obvious that they need to find somebody to play with Ivan Demidov. What other things do you think Kent Hughes should be looking for this summer?
Well, you know what? They need more toughness. They need more size. We're not even necessarily size because they've got big guys, but you've got to move beyond the Kirby Dach experiment. In my view, do not re-sign him. That'll give you some money because there's the kind of guy because we're talking about what the team needs. Second line center, more toughness. Well, he was supposed to bring those two things, and I think that's been really. We're now, I think, is it 4 seasons? It's the jury's in. It's not worked out, so they need that second line center. But the problem with everything is that you can say that it's easy to say that, and they're super. Gorton and Hughes are super smart guys and super smart managers. But what's out there? How many teams want a second line center? Probably about 15. The other thing they really need help on defense. And so they've got a lot of skill in terms of offense on the D. A great skater like Mike Matheson, Lane Hudson, obviously a superstar to be. Well, he's already a superstar. He's probably the best player on the team. But they don't have, and again, it's a wish list, and it's easier said than done. They need a big, tough, skilled defenseman who can clear the front of the net. I mean, they don't remotely have anyone who could do that. It should be Goulet, but he's not quite there. Jack Guy's got the toughness, but doesn't have the skill. You've really seen this through these playoffs. I mean, it's, when you were playing the Buffalo Sabres, those are big boys, and they're just battling you in front of the net. And how often did we see that leading to goal? Because Matheson's so busy fighting this guy. You need Shea Weber in his prime, right? And again, those guys don't grow on trees either. And you need some grit and toughness further down the lineup in the bottom six, up front as well. And that's the kind of thing, like getting a second line center, there's a good chance they'll end the summer without a second line center. I mean, that's just the reality. But getting some gritty, tough guys with heart, those guys are available. And I think the team is at the stage of their build and rebuild that they can use some draft picks and maybe even some young prospects to get those kinds of players. Look, they're going to get rid of Laine. Obviously, he'll be gone. I suggest they get rid of Kirby Dach. They'll have some money. The cap is going up, so that side of things should work. And you can get toughness. You really can, and they really do need more of that. I mean, again, what we learned from these playoffs is they rely so heavily on Josh Anderson to do that. He can't do it. He's too old and too beat up. I mean, he can, but you can't rely on him. You need 3 or 4 guys for doing that. I mean, we talk about, how the Hurricanes have just been pounding them. Well, they need some guys to pound back, and they really don't have that. So they got to go after the grit and toughness, huge priority.
As you mentioned, I mean, a lot of teams looking for a number two center, though, Rick. I think one of the things the Canadiens have a lot of things that young rebuilding teams would want, right? They got a lot of young prospects. They got a draft pick still. I think they could put together a pretty impressive package to try and get that second line center. But I think, at the trade deadline this year, Kent Hughes didn't do anything. We got Philip Danault earlier. I think that's just a sign of patience they've had since this rebuild started. They're not going to mortgage the future for one quick run at the playoffs. Is that the right approach moving forward still? Do you think they still need to be patient this summer a little bit, Rick?
Well, I'm sure that they're patient, but if something presented itself, they're going to make the move. But like Brendan mentioned, Anderson, he's the kind of guy that we need more of. We need more guys to be aggressive and physical on the forecheck that are going to keep the opposition on guard. And he can't, we saw the effectiveness of Anderson. He created lots of opportunities to score goals and did his share. We don't have enough of that up front, and it'd be nice to find some guys that can play a similar style that act almost like a catalyst off the forecheck that's going to create a lot of problems for the opposition. So yeah, so that's what I would like to see them, trying to hone in on and see if they can find a way to to make themselves better in that department.
Were they smart this trade deadline, Brendan, to be patient again and not sort of make some kind of...
No, I actually think it was a mistake. It's not a, end of the world mistake, but you know what? I'm absolutely convinced that Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, like most fans probably, thought, you know what? They'll go to game 7 against Tampa, maybe game 6, and they'll lose. They did not think they were going to be in the conference final, and neither did we, because if they did, they would have picked up some players. And I'm not talking about, selling the house to get some star dude, but they would have gone, and if they'd gotten a little support in the bottom of the lineup, that probably would have made a big difference. Look at how gassed this team is right now. But it's not the end of the world. But I would say that, patience is not the word for this summer. This summer is not necessarily all in, but you can't just sit around waiting. I mean, this is the Edmonton Oilers philosophy, You've got, it's kind of similar to the Oilers in the sense they've got 2 guys. Well, the Habs have got 5 guys. They've got 5 absolutely incredible young players there, the core, the guys that are on that power play. But it's the supporting pieces. We saw this with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We saw this with the Edmonton Oilers. You win cups and you make it to the cup final with the supporting players. And they really need to do that. And you can't wait around forever. That's the other thing. Some fans are like, oh, well, we'll be back in the conference final next year. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they won't make the playoffs. I think they will. But what if Dobeš has a bad season? What if he's injured? What if? You've got to get those players now. I think it's very interesting at the trade deadline. Kent Hughes said, you were there at that press conference, that he was working on a big deal and it fell through. And these guys have been pretty transparent and honest, so I'm sure it's true. And he said, we're going to go back after that deal in the summer. So it was not a rental situation. So I think they're going to swing for the fences this summer. It's not, swinging for McDavid, but they're going to get some pieces because they realize, Suzuki's not a rookie. You've got to get going. It's not in 5 years that you win the cup. If you do, it's not with Suzuki in his prime. So it's the time is now in the next couple of years. So I expect them to be very aggressive. But that said, it's like we say it every free agency day. It's hard to get any good deals. Everyone overpays. There's a bunch of stupid GMs who pay stupid money. How many trades are available? This is where the great general managers step up. Marc Bergevin said you can't trade for a number 1 center. Well, guess what? You can. And you can certainly trade for a number 2 center. That's where the best teams are the best managed teams. And these guys are super smart. But I expect them to go hard this summer.
Yeah, I agree. I think, this rebuild is ahead of schedule. As mentioned, I don't think anybody expected them to be in the conference finals this year. I don't think anybody expected them to make the playoffs last year. And I think I think they realize now, too, their window to start what they wanted to build is right now. And as you mentioned, Kent Hughes said that they were very close to that deal at the trade deadline. Maybe the cost was obviously too high. Maybe the cost will be a little lower in the summer. Maybe somebody who's becoming a free agent. Who knows? But I guess we'll find out this summer. Anyway, that's it for our final bonus episode of the week. I hope you all enjoyed it. We'll be back with our weekly Hockey Inside Out show in a few days. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. And in case you didn't already know, Hockey Inside Out is also available now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.